Varun, am I audible?
Yes, Kaushal, you are.
Okay, thank you. So I welcome each one of you who have taken out time during this lockdown period and have joined us for the second season for No Lockdown for Learning series. With the tremendous support and encouragement that you have provided in our first season, we thought of bringing another season for you all. And today is our curtain raiser event where we have got a very special person for a keynote address and some industry experts who will be taking up a panel discussion on the same topic. So, a quick round of rules that I always share with you all. So, kindly keep your mics on mute and videos off. Participants will be muted during the session. We request and urge you all to type in your queries, questions in the chat box. We'll try to answer all your queries and questions at the end of the session. And we know that we are in lockdown, so anybody can face technical glitches. So we request you all to stay calm in this situation. And at the end of the session, we have a feedback form. We request you all to fill in the feedback form to receive more updates about the upcoming sessions and the upcoming webinars. So I hope you all are clear with the ground rules that we'll be following for this season and for all the sessions that we conduct. So today, the topic that our keynote presenter will be taking up is the job cuts in education industry post COVID-19 and skill areas that institutions would now look for while hiring teachers. So we have got a very special person with us who will be talking on the job cuts in the education industry post COVID-19 and the skill areas which are very important which will be taken up by the institutions while hiring teachers. Before we move ahead, I would like to share the agenda for today's session. So we have the keynote speech from 4 to 4:40 p.m., followed by a panel discussion starting at 4:40 till 5:10. So this is the agenda for today's session and something we would like to tell you about ourselves. So we are teacher, teacher with an extra R. This extra R is a repository. I call this a repository. It is a repository to connect with like minded educators and share learnings and bring joy into the classroom, exchanging ideas and resources, attending professional developmental activities and events, and finding very high paying jobs and other opportunities. So on a daily basis, we are updating our website. We request you to have a look at the website and apply for those. We have also come up with some work from home opportunities. Would request you to take a look at the website and apply to those. So I see the clock is ticking at 4, and now it's time to introduce today's presenter. So today we have got Dr. Chandrasekhar DP with us. He serves as the CEO of the JAN Group of Institutions. He is a Rex Karamveer Global Education Change Champion Fellow and was ranked 7th in the Education World's ranking of 33 young rising stars of Indian education in March 2017. A TEDx speaker and a President's Distinguished District Director of Toastmasters International, he is also the co-founder of Sumadhu Trust, envisioning a rabies-free India. He is an alumnus of IIM Lucknow and represented India at the International Visitor Leadership Program to USA. Dr. Chandra is on a mission mode to impact 1 million children through his work and wants to leverage his experience in education sector to build a better schooling system in India. Along with this, he is electrifying and a magical speaker. He has talked to more than 30,000 people throughout 4 continents and is ranked as top 1% of the global group of 300 leading professional speakers in India. He has delivered more than 900 presentations to audience of all sizes. He is also recipient of 23 awards. CSK, as he is popularly known as, knows how to create win-win scenario with the audience. He is a high he has written a highly acclaimed book called The Right Way Leader pocketbook that is taking the youth by storm and is becoming a staple of people who excel by challenging current practices through a core value based approach. He loves cricket and tries to play it when he's not lobbying with organizations like CIE, Young India, and social institutions for education and other things. So now I welcome Dr. Chandrasekhar to take away the session.
Thank you, Kaushal. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Before I begin and share my screen, I want to check if I'm audible, if the voice is okay.
Yes, sir, your voice is audible.
Fantastic. All right. So, good afternoon to all of you. And it's a privilege to speak and connect with all the educators across different parts of the country. And it's an amazing thing which we as educators have done ever since the lockdown, I must say, is we have never stopped reinventing ourselves. I say this with a lot of gratitude to all the teachers, and I also have a great deal of respect for all the teachers and the teaching community, because I know of examples where teachers were fearing technology. But today, the same teachers have risen to the occasion, and now they are connecting with their children and they are able to deliver meaning and value to everybody. So that's an amazing turnaround, and the whole world is sitting back and taking stock of this tremendous turnaround. So I want to start off by saying fantastic job done by all teachers. Thanks for this reinvention and continue to set an example to the whole. Now I want to also thank teacher with an extra R for actually creating the series. You know, there is no lockdown for learning. It's indeed an amazing platform where we can connect and share ideas and thoughts with everyone, and we can express our feelings. So I really appreciate the initiative by Kaushal and Varun and the entire team of Teacher. And amazing, you know, the youngsters have done a great job. So I would like to appreciate that. All right. Having said that, let's get on with the topic for today. And the topic which I have is a tricky one indeed. And why do I say it's a tricky one? Is because of this particular title, Job Cuts in Education Industry Post COVID-19. The topic itself, if you look at it on the face of it, is quite pessimistic. Are there going to be job cuts? Is job cuts inevitable? These are the questions which is haunting every educator and educational leader. I'm sure some of you who have joined this also have these questions which are lingering in your mind. But let's face the elephant in the room. That's the need of the hour. That's the reality of today. We need to look at it from that perspective. So what I'm going to do today is take you through the global scenario and also the scenario in India and how we are responding and reacting to these things. And let's see how can we look at solutions. Because I have a double role to play today. First, talk about the job cuts, but then the optimistic side of it is the new set of skills which are required for educators, because those skills will keep you in the job and keep you growing in the job. So that's the best part. So I've saved the best part towards the end. The first few slides which I'll be sharing with you will all focus on job cuts in education industry. Just a quick check. Are you all able to see my screen and the slides which I'm sharing? Kaushal?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. So I'll be going ahead with my next slide. Let's look at this. Let's look at a little bit of recap. When it all started, it really started in September 2019. But then if you look at it as on April 15th, almost 191 governments closed down their schools. That's a whooping 1.6 billion children affected. In fact, the statistics are to be believed. It says that 1/3 of the world's population is at home because they were in the schools and colleges. Let's look at India's share. First of all, as you can see on the image, we as a country enforced countrywide school closure. We did not take it in parts or regions or segments. It was an umbrella decision that the entire country is going to shut down the schools. Now, if you look at India's share, estimates say that we have 1.5 million schools. That's 15 lakh schools. And we have close to, as per the last census which was taken in 2015, we have close to 260 million children who go to schools. Now, that many children are at home because all the schools in the country are shut. Now, that's the one important thing we need to consider. Let's look at the other side of it, the teachers, because we are talking about job cuts and the teaching fraternity. As per the census, which was last taken in 2011 and 2012, the census speaks about around 86 lakh teachers from the government sector. You need to remember these numbers. These are very interesting and very important as we go forward. 86 lakh teachers are belonging from the government sector. That is, they are government school teachers owned or rather employed by the state and the central government institutions. But if you look at the total teaching staff of the country, that's at 2.96 million, close to 3 crore. 2.96 million teachers across the country. Now, if you subtract 86 lakh teachers, that's 2.1 million. That's almost 2.10 million rather. That is 210 lakh teachers who are in the private sector. Now, if you look at all these numbers, this session is even more interesting and is even more critical for us to understand the job scenario in education sector, because close to 210 lakh teachers are now in doldrums in terms of their future. Now, don't make any mistake here in coming to conclusions that, okay, all of us are going out of jobs. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying here is that's the magnitude and gravity of the situation we are facing. Nearby, if you look at recent history, this is an example which you can pick it up. This is the recession of 2008, 2010 in US. India has never faced such a thing in the past, at least from emergency times. We've never seen this kind of a nationwide emergency situation. So I picked up this example just to give you a kind of an analysis and also some kind of backing in terms of what governments can do and will do in such a situation. Now, the ray of hope is starting here. If you look at this, 120,000 jobs were lost between 2008 2010 in the USA during the last recession. But that's the worst part. The best part is the government, the Department of Education, stepped up and saved almost 275,000 education jobs. And that does not include only teachers. It includes principals, librarians, counselors, and other people. That means the role of government is very, very critical. Plus, they also saved the job crisis from boomeranging on them. If you look at the other side, the right side of the screen, it talks about an important piece of information which research has given. And that's from the Learning Policy Institute analysis in 2019. It talks about investments in instruction, that is teaching and learning, especially high quality teachers appear to leverage the largest marginal gains in student performance. Now, this is no rocket science for all of us. The quality of the teacher determines the output quality of the student's performance. So the ray of hope here is the government jobs are going to be protected, no doubt about this. The second thing is, if you are a quality teacher, your job also is protected because your contribution directly responds to the child's progress and performance, and no school in the country wants to compromise on the child's performance, whichever may be the management, whatever may be their background. Now, let's look at the impact of COVID-19 on the education sector, particularly the school and the higher education segment. Now here, if you look at this, globally, this survey was conducted in March 2020, and this is what the people feel. Near future looks grim, but the hope lies ahead. That is what we all feel. Because let's look at the context. Overnight, all of us were forced into a lockdown. We never know when this is going to get over. And then we had to still keep our learning going on. I read this interesting quote, and that's very, very true here, that the school buildings are shut, but the learning has never stopped. That's because all the schools tried their best and are trying, as I am speaking, to get onto the online platform or the leveraging technology side of it and try to reach out their stakeholders. Now, if you look at this graph towards the right on this graph talks about the short-term impact. The short-term impact is high when it comes to, is actually worse when it comes to Africa, Asia, Europe, and other parts of the world. But look at the blue color. The blue color talks about substantially better. Why do I want to focus on the blue color? Is even in the short term, it's in the Asian continent and the Europe and the Latin American continent and sometimes some parts of North America and Australia and Oceania is where we have hope. That's where the people immediately felt. Remember, this was conducted in March 2020. So immediately they said this is disaster. But then they also quickly recovered and said, no, it's going to be better. That's what I mean by saying near future looks grim for education, but hope lies ahead. Now let's
Yes, sir.
I see some disturbance.
Yeah, sir. Just muting the participant.
Okay. Thanks. So if you look at the second part of this, which is long-term impact. Now you see in Asia, especially here, you see that the hope, the substantial better part is growing. So what I mean to say in these two charts is immediately there will be a slump. Let me decode it for us. Now you look at it, first of all, the good news. Teachers don't have to worry because quality teachers and teaching community staff will be protected. They'll be last in the order of trying to be replaced by schools and schools. But what happens here is in education sector, it is not just the teachers who make it, because remember, we are discussing about the total education sector as a whole. As a school, we have teaching staff. We also have a great amount of non-teaching staff. We have supporting staff. We have the kitchen and the dining staff. We have the transport staff. We have the housekeepers. We have the security staff. We have a lot of people. Now, those are the people who need to be protected. Those are the people who will be worst affected in the short term. I know of schools who are considering and contemplating, what do we do? What do we do for the month of April? Because we really never ran the office for even a single day. Why do we have to pay the salary? Why do we have to take care of them? We need to defer the payments. Yes, there may be multiple approaches, but then the short-term impact is definitely high on those staff members and their families. Because if the management decides that we have to make their payment, we are not going to make the salary, how are they going to run? But remember, those also contribute for the education sector job cuts because they also make the school and they also help the school run. So that's the scenario here. And in that context, you got to see this short-term situation looks grim, but the hope lies ahead. In the long term, it will recover. And the best news is, if you look at respondents, Asia and the Middle East are the people who are looking at it from the optimistic side. That means we in this part of the subcontinent, we are safe and we are going to be better off compared to the other countries in the world. Now, if you assess the global education landscape, the global scenario, this chart is very interesting from the demand perspective. What do you mean by demand? The global demand is going to be high in Middle East, in Africa, and in Asia. And I want you to listen this carefully because with online education, with a teacher getting online and engaging the children, there are no boundaries now. You can't really say, I'm going to teach the students who belong to one particular geography or one particular location. And that's going to be the order of the day very soon. If you are an excellent geography teacher and you have conceptual clarity and you know how to engage with children online in a meaningful and a value addition way, don't be surprised when you start getting requests from people across the country and across the globe to actually conduct classes for them. And that is a reinvention. That is the new role of a teacher today in the country. And thanks to COVID in that context, that it has accelerated this global outlook for an Indian teacher.
Mr. Paresh,
Yeah.
I would request you to please mute yourself, Mr. Paresh.
All right. So moving ahead, this is very interesting, but again, take it with a pinch of salt. When respondents in that survey were asked what is going to be the situation in Indian education and the global education, in September 2019, 7% expected a decrease in staffing, but within the next 6 months in March 2020, this rose to 26%. That is about appointments, new recruitments. And as I'm speaking today, let me talk about JGI. We have put a global freeze or a national freeze on new recruitments, at least for the next 3 to 4 weeks. I'm telling this only because we don't know what the situation is going to be in the future. Uncertainty is going to be the order of the day. And we are all living in this VUCA world where this volatile situation, uncertain situation, is going to create a lot of impact on our decision making. So friends, the situation is going to be grim for next 2 to 3 months minimum. But we got to use that 2 to 3 months to equip ourselves in a better way because we can challenge the new realities. I don't know what happened to the screen because I lost control. Kaushal?
Sir, request you to again close the sharing and again restart sharing it. Maybe then it will start working.
Okay. Just a second. See, technology can also be like this. All right. Can you see my screen now or no?
Not yet, sir.
Is it visible now?
Yeah, it's visible now.
All right. Okay, never mind. So coming back, let's look at this. But before we get here, I want to sum up the first part of the conversation. The first part of the conversation, key 3 lessons. 1, The short term looks very, very tricky, looks grim. Two, teaching fraternity, the teachers need not worry because their jobs are going to be protected both in the private and the public sector. And three, this time, that is the next 2 to 3 months, is the time which we as teachers need to use to upskill ourselves. We need to reinvent ourselves. We need to get on with the changing nature of the demands because we got to be relevant and we got to be important in the context of learning in this world. So that's the thing. Now let's go to the next part of it. What are the new skills required? And I want to talk about it in two contexts. Number one, for an existing teacher, what are the skills that are required? And the same set of skills will be seen by institutions for recruiting new people, because that's the order of the day going forward. As of now, when we speak, we don't know when the schools are going to reopen. In fact, I'm told that do not expect any school to open up before July of 2020. From whatever I could read and research and understand from people and the media reports, that's what it is. But that is earliest. It can be later. And the other part of it is, even if schools are allowed to open up, even if we open, do we really think that parents are going to send their children to the school? The last report from the media which I read was less than 10% of the parents are even willing to send their children in the next 2 to 3 months after the school opens. So there are a lot of challenges, but let's come back to what we need to do, you and I need to do to upgrade our skills so that we get to be relevant in the post-COVID-19 world, as they are calling it, the new normal. Now, these are the 6 skills which I have picked up to be crucial for the teachers who enter the work in the post-COVID-19 world. Now, as these are skills which are relevant for both existing teachers who are making the community of teaching work in the country, and also those for schools to look at, the management to look at recruiting people. These are the skills which will be added to the wish list. So the first one, we all know about adaptability, and adaptability is the key. In fact, flexibility and adaptability will determine your relevance to the post-COVID-19 world. And this is a common factor for any teacher. You may be a pre-nursery teacher, you may be a middle school teacher, you may be a high school teacher, or you may be a college teacher. Any teacher, adaptability is important. And all of us know how we all have to adapt to the changing technologies. As I'm talking to you, you see the effort which I am making to adapt to this particular thing, because personally, I am a person who believes in personal touch, who believe in meeting personally, who believe in interacting with people, walking around hands-on. But today, I'm spending almost 6 to 7 hours of my day speaking in front of this pinhole of a camera. I'm talking to this camera and I'm expecting that the whole world is also reciprocating to me. So this is new, but I'm adapting to this situation. And I know I'm at the mercy of the power cut, I'm at the mercy of technology, I'm at the mercy of my own limitation, because sometimes I may not even comprehend the technology which I'm trying to adapt to. But then that's a skill which we need to grow in ourselves. The second one is creativity and communication. In fact, I must put this on record that a lot of creativity has come up in education sector, especially in school education during this lockdown. Let me give you an example. Some of the schools are conducting project-based learning online through these technological platforms. That's not it. They're conducting Zumba classes online, and children are telling that we are learning. In fact, my own chairman, the other day when he was addressing the staff members, he shared that he's learning guitar online from his instructor. Gym and instruction, physical training is happening online. So creativity is prospering and blossoming everywhere. The other piece of it is communication. In this lockdown and in the future, that is on technology, communication is very important. The skill which is very important, gone are the days when the teacher says it is for my HOD to go and talk and represent in the meetings. It is for my principal to convince the management. It is for somebody higher up, but not me, to get into communication with the parents or the stakeholders. Today, each teacher has to have that capability to communicate and communicate better to people, because people are going to judge you on that 2-inch by 2-inch frame on their computer. You got to communicate well. And when I say communication, don't mistake me for just English language. It can be any language, Hindi, Telugu, Marathi, Kannada, or any other language. You got to communicate. You got to share what you're thinking, because your thoughts are most important. And this platform will be connected only through communication. Because at a class, you can walk up to a child, put your hand on the child's shoulder, and then guide him or her. But in technology, that may not be realistic. So communication becomes very important, and you got to improve it. The third one, I picked that third one as resilience, because you fail. We all fail in this pursuit of post-COVID world, because everything is new. Everything needs to be adjusted, adapted, and also tested. And when you are testing, when you are experimenting, you will fail. But what is important is you cannot give up. You cannot give up. You cannot say, oh, this is not for me. This is not my cup of tea. Because if you do that, that's the end of the road for you. Let me tell you this. Technology may not replace a teacher, but teachers who do not adapt to technology will be replaced by those teachers who will run with technology. Let me repeat that for you. Technology may not replace teachers, but teachers who refuse to adapt to technology will be replaced by those teachers who will run with technology. So resilience becomes very, very important. The fourth one is continuous learning. And don't stop your learning with your subject, with technological tools, but continue to learn a different curve. When I say a different curve, what do I mean? You got to learn about psychology, how people are reacting and responding to situation. You got to learn about a lot of other things which comes in handy for you. For example, one piece is using the technology well, but the other piece is assessing the children while talking to them. Of course, you are using technology. Of course, you are using your subject to engage with them, but how do you assess? How do you engage the children and handle their attention spans? That is also learning. And you also personally have to attend a lot of webinars, a lot of sessions like how you're doing here, and listen to what is happening globally. Because remember this, you are no more a teacher in one corner of the country. You are a global teacher. You got to be abreast with the changing trends, and you got to keep yourself up to pace with the scenarios globally. And then the fifth one is emotional quotient. Yes, we have all heard this for quite some time now, at least in the last 2 to 3 years, that intelligent quotient is now treated balanced with emotional quotient. Earlier, it was rated very high. Intelligent quotient was very high. But today, it has almost reached the same level as IQ, the EQ part. But in my view, the future is going to be more of EQ and less of IQ. Remember, in the class, we all know this, there are multiple variety of learners. There are kinesthetic learners, there are auditory learners, there are visual learners, and there are people who want to read and write and then they want to practice. But as a teacher, are you able to spot it? Do you have the emotional bent of mind to pause for a while and look at your children, and then look at them and their needs? And that requires emotion. And in technology, I believe emotional connection becomes tougher. Of course, you can pick up a phone and call somebody, or you can connect at the stroke of a mouse button. But that's the tool. What will you talk? How will you talk? That's the technique. And that comes from emotional quotient, and you need to bring that skill up. And the last one, entrepreneurial skills. When I say this, you may all raise your eyebrows and say, why do a teacher need to be an entrepreneur, or why do a teacher need these skills? Let me tell you this and remind you. Today, every teacher is an institution going forward. Earlier, teachers were known for the subject they teach and the value they add to their classroom. Today, you will be judged and measured on the impact you have on the economy because your reach is just multiplied. Just take a math calculation. If you are a teacher with 25 to 30 years of experience, and on average every class had 40 children, and you handled around 6 classes in a year, the math will come up to how much? 6 classes into 40 children, and then into the 20 or 30 years. So that's around all right, there seems to be some issue. Okay, so I was doing the math in terms of you have 6 classes, 40 children each, and then you have 20 to 30 years of experience. So you will be around talking to around 7,500 students or 8,000 students in your career spanning 30 years. Today, you go to any platform like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, you can talk to 10,000 people at one shot. Now, if 10,000 people are listening to you, and if they're learning from you, just look at the impact they are going to make on the country and the economy. In that context, you need to become entrepreneurial. When I say entrepreneurial, it is not just about making money. It's about the mindset of solving the problem all around your subject and out of your subject. That's the most important. You got to look at it as a problem solver's perspective. You're no more a teacher who will be busy with completing your chapters. You'll be a teacher who is adding value to a person's life in a larger space because the scale of impact is going to be that much more. So you need to get into this entrepreneurial skills and you need to build that in you. And let me tell you the secret. All these skills, whatever you see on the screen, are already in us. It's not that we don't have it. It's just that we need to hone it. We need to bring that to the forefront because that's what people will be looking for. So the answer to the question, post COVID-19, what are the skills in a teacher, a school or a management in a school will look for are these skills. If I was recruiting somebody, I will keep aside her experience. I will keep aside his or her subject domain expertise. I will keep aside the things which really mattered pre-COVID in terms of the way the teacher is going to engage the class, because those things may not be relevant to me online, but I will look at these skills. Of course, the subject domain expertise is important. I'm not saying that. What I mean to say is that along with these skills actually complete the whole picture. So that is what I would like to tell you as far as the skills are concerned. Lastly, I want to end with this. Alvin Toffler said that the learners of the 21st century are the people who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. Or the leaders of the 21st century are the ones who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I strongly believe this time is the time when this quote is more relevant than ever. So friends, I want to say that there will be an initial slump in the education sector. However, this will only be a short-term slump. In the long term, education is definitely going to bloom. Look at education in the context of other sectors. For example, aviation, for example, hospitals, tourism. They have no clue what is going to happen to them. But education has picked up. In fact, if you see 10 reports, 9 of them talk about education is going to grow and it is going to go a long way. Online education, EdTech. In fact, recently our finance minister announced that 100 universities will be shortlisted to offer online education programs. And just imagine what happens to those online education programs when corporates start recognizing those programs. Then the children who will go through it will get placed. That means they get jobs. That means they get money. That means these online degrees will find new value. And who's going to benefit? The teachers who are going to deliver those online lectures are going to benefit from it. So on this optimistic note, I would like to conclude my talk. And thank you very much once again, all of you, for listening, and teacher for providing this platform. I really am eager to join the panelists and listen to them and their views, and also answer some of the questions if there are any. Thank you once again, and back to Kaushal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chandra. As I said, that he is a electrifying and a magical speaker, and he has made magic into our lives by giving this talk today, and by creating values in our life. The skills that Sir has shared, I hope we all have these skills in us. But the only thing is that we have to learn, unlearn, and relearn about these skills day on a daily basis, so that we can create value into our lives and into our students' lives. So thank you so much, sir, for this keynote address for our first curtain raiser event. So now moving towards the panel discussion. Just a second, participants. So for our today's panel discussion, we have with us two industry experts. We have Dr. Amit Chandra with us. Dr. Amit Chandra is a social development professional with expertise on policy solutions to some of the most pressing issues of time, such as school education, urban livelihoods, and governance. He has played a crucial role in developing, strengthening, and scaling National Independent School Alliance (NISA), the National Federation of Association of Low-Cost Private Schools, as national coordinator in his previous role. So I welcome Dr. Chandra to our panel discussion. Moving ahead, we have Divya Kapoor with us as the panelist for the panel discussion. She is currently working as headmistress in Pragyan School, Greater Noida. Some of the areas of her expertise includes developing quality interventions in the teaching learning space, using instructional strategies, designing SDG-based activities, and flexible assessments. She has been working significantly towards peer mentoring. She has received the prestigious CBSE National Award 2018 for her contribution in the field of education, and the Global Teacher Award 2019 by AKS Worldwide. We are honored by your presence, Dr. Chandra and Divya ma'am, that you have agreed to be part of this allied panel and help us understand the skills and the areas how teachers can improve upon themselves. So we open the panel, we open the floor for question and answer. So participants would request you to please write up your queries, your questions in the chat box, and then we move ahead with the question. So Varun, if you could help me with the chat window.
Yes. So
So to build the momentum, I'll ask a short, quick take on the three skills with Dr. Chandra you feel that are very important, and Divya ma'am that you feel that are very important for teachers to have in this scenario, the post-COVID area that sir told that it's the new normal. So a very quick reaction on the three skills that you would suggest teachers will have, and Divya ma'am that you would suggest that teachers should have the three skills. So over to you, Dr. Chandra.
Hi, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So first of all, let me thank Dr. Chandrasekhar. I think he gave us a pretty good overview of what is likely to happen and also the kind of skill set required. I pretty much agree. So even while I was thinking about it, I was talking about something similar. But when it comes to three key skills, first thing I would say, while I mean, this might be sounding something as a new dynamic to come, new challenge to come. I would say no. At times, the solution to some complex problems are very simple. It's our inability to address those simpler challenges in a simple solution. We fail to provide simple solution, and the challenge becomes more and more complex. And therefore, what I'm actually pointing to is what we had started calling it 21st century skills. So while everyone was talking about 21st century skills for children, in fact, we were not talking for the teachers. Somehow we assumed that, the, the, there will be a transition in teachers, the old teachers are going to go, new teachers are going to come. In any case, the world is changing slowly. So by the time we need to prepare the children with the 21st century skills, but we never thought of making sure that our teachers are compliant with 21st century skills. And that is what I would put as the first requirement. So while there will be a new dynamics, as Dr. Chandrasekhar has already pointed out, and I pretty much can agree and support with more of the evidence and ideas and give you a broader picture of what is likely to happen. But I would focus once again on 21st century skills, what we call critical thinking, because you have to be all the time thinking about your method of delivery, the pedagogy, the lesson planning. Is this the best way to do it? So you have to all the time innovate yourself, your teaching style. So critical thinking becomes very important. A creativity in your delivery, your planning, your exercise. So you don't really have to replicate the old style instruction lecture based classroom model into an online space. So you have to rethink of and redesign of your education delivery. So if we are thinking of replicating the same classroom into online space, I think it's a bad idea. And along with that, certainly you have to have collaboration and communication to communicate properly and work in teams at the online space. But the other additional skill I would add to it will what I'll call is ever ready. Dr. Chandrasekhar has pointed out that now you are no more going to be a city teacher or your mohalla teacher, your daily teacher. Slowly, you are going to be a nationwide teacher available or a global teacher. And in that case, when you are completely decentralized the education model, which means sitting in, let's say, Delhi, you are teaching students in Africa, Canada, US, Latin America, East Asian countries, Middle East countries. At times, you never know at what time the question will come, in what method and what shape at what time. So you have to be really, really ready with all your content. You have to be master of the subject. At the same time, keep in mind that in the online space, your classroom is no more inside a four wall. So where what you are teaching is between you and your students. Now the parents would be most of the time sitting with the kids, when your management will be at times involved in the classroom. So they would also be sitting and observing. And at times your classes will be recorded and will be made available for future kids and more kids who cannot come online at a particular time. So your classroom is completely going to be wide open, no more secret. So anything and everything, if you are not delivering the right lesson, it's going to get viral, and soon everyone would know the quality of your teaching ability. And therefore, this you're going to enter into a completely new dynamic, new change environment. So, which will have pretty interesting dynamics.
So thank you, Dr. Chandra. Over to you, Divya ma'am. What do you feel? What are the three important skills that you look into a teacher while hiring, and what will be the new change that you will be looking once the schools open?
Thank you, Kaushal. And I would first like to extend my thanks to Dr. Chandrasekhar and Dr. Amit Chandra because they have both quite summed up a lot of the things that are pretty much the scenario of today. And both of them have already said that, yes, definitely the classrooms would not be wide open. They are already wide open. And being very closely related to the management, I myself see the classes as well as see parents sitting behind their children, watching the teachers day in and out. So yes, the classes are wide open. And so when I look for post COVID-19 period, definitely there are a few skill sets that will change. For me, the first and the foremost for a teacher post COVID-19, whether she is currently a teacher or the coming workforce, I would like to see her with a willingness to learn. I had heard that, if you want actually to fill someone's stomach on a particular day, you give them food. But if you actually want to feed them for life, you teach them how to earn that food for themselves. In other words, catch the fish to fill the stomach. But in our case also, I think it is pretty relevant because we really need to learn. Learning to learn is what the attitude of the teacher should be. She needs to be on board with whatever new things are coming in place. She needs to be willing to think out of the box, come out of her own comfort zone, and have a growth mindset that it's not just about her classroom today, but it's about her classroom in the future as well. The second thing that I would like the teachers to have is, the ability to be able to engage children properly. Because with the online classroom, online teaching coming in, what is really happening is that children are getting exposed to a lot at a smaller age. Now they see, they see and they learn much earlier than the teachers learn. So it becomes difficult for a while, to keep them engaged within a classroom. Soon they find things repetitive, monotonous, mundane. So it is very important for teachers to change things on daily basis, change their strategies, look into different tech tools so that they give a new experience to the students on each day in each classroom, and children can be engaged properly in the learning that we are wanting to give them. And thirdly, most importantly, to do the second bit, that is to be able to look into different tech tools, train yourself for that, and be able to execute it seamlessly in your classrooms. You need to be well planned, organized, and patient. All the three things come in together, because if you're not doing these three, if you're not planned, if you're not thorough, if you're not organized about your class, and if you are not patient, because kids might not be able to take it very well the first time you do an experiment with them. So with these three things, I think we'll be able to put a much better online classroom, or even an offline classroom for that matter, post COVID-19. Thank you.
I would like to quote Dr. Amit Chandra here, that we always talk about 21st century skills for the kids, but now it's for the teachers also. So how we are creating our classroom experiences, how we are collaborating with global educators, and in this ability we are increasing our communication skills also. So Dr. Chandrasekhar, I would like to know, how can these skills be upgraded? So please share some tips with our participants, that how the skills that you have told and the other panelists have told, how these skills can be upgraded and could be imbibed into our lives to give enriching experiences.
All right. First of all, I want to thank both Mr. Amit and Ms. Divya for sharing their perspectives. I really second and appreciate that. Thank you very much. Now, coming to the question, Kaushal, in terms of how can we upgrade and upskill ourselves? In fact, that's a very important question for all of us to answer, because 99% of our work is into action, is in implementation. Idea may be extraordinary, but the implementation is what will get us there. So, having said that, my tip would be in 3 steps. Step number 1, do a thorough self-assessment. You first have to understand you are not at level 0 when it comes to all these skills. You have some amount of inherent skills at different levels. So please do a self-assessment, a thorough self-assessment as to identifying which skill I need to work upon, which skill I need to maintain, and which skill I need to reinvent. So these are the things we need to look at. That's the first step. The second step is find out, by connecting with people again, with your friends, with your colleagues, with your mentors, or people in the institution, as to what is the shortest way. What is the shortest way and the best way to get those skills? Because remember, you can take a long route to get there, but the world is not going to wait. You have to be there before anybody gets there. And in that sense, I want every one of us to become competitive. So please identify that. The first step being self-assessment. Second step is identifying the shortest way and the best way to get there. And the third one, practice. Once you have those skills, because theory part of the skill can be easily taken, but the reality is you need to practice it, and only by learning, by doing, you will learn it. So these are the 3 steps, in my opinion, which one can use to hone any skill. Back to you, Kaush.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insight. And I would request Dr. Amit Chandra and Divya ma'am to share more, that since you are both education experts, so what could be the shortest way for educators to imbibe the skills during this COVID era, and so that when the schools open, we are refreshed with the new skills? So I would request Divya ma'am to start first, and then we'll move towards Dr. Amit.
Thank you, Kaushal. Surely, like Sir said, I totally agree that the world is not going to wait for us, and we are the ones who need to actually find out the shortest way to, revamp ourselves in this time. And I think, according to me, the 3 steps that I would look towards will be reflection. This is the best time for reflecting upon ourselves, And reflection definitely helps us unwind. It helps us realize the mistakes that we have been making. So all the teachers who are taking online classes, reflecting upon your own strengths and weaknesses during these classes will help you understand where you are. Secondly is being receptive. If someone is giving you a feedback, may it be a parent, may it be a student, may it be the management, we need to be receptive to feedback for continuous improvement. So if we are receptive to feedback and we are open for looking for avenues for improvement, we will definitely be able to do that. And the third is platforms like these, where you share your best practices through your professional learning network. So you need to build a professional learning network. You need to use this time to build your PLN so that you are able to know what the world is doing, how the world is doing it, and help each other. If you have an expertise, if you know something, you need to step forward and go and explain it to your own colleagues, may it be your own school. And if you are confident enough, then take up a global platform, put up a video for something that you know you can teach the world. And on the other hand, on the receiver's end, you need to be looking for opportunities, avenues where you can actually learn from. So readiness to learn from the other end. So that would be my take on this.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Dr. Chandra, I would like to ask you uh, about the PLN that we call the Professional Learning Network. Do you feel it is really helpful in achieving the skill set that we all are talking about? And how one can proceed, if yes, and how one can proceed in building the learning network and imbibing the skills?
Okay, great. PLN, yes, obviously, it's going to be more than ever important because as we are talking about what is the shortest and best way to imbibe those skills which will be in demand. And once again, I think those things which might look more tough and complicated may not be as much of a rocket science. It may be very easy thing to do. When I say easy thing to do, what are those skills I'm actually talking about? It's what is it that makes us not to be compatible with the future or the 21st century skill or the new demand which is going to be is actually our own inertia. So I have felt while working with educators for a very long time that while we were talking about this digital technology integration, bringing digital platform, digital schools, 21st century learning, anytime you talk about new methodologies, new ways of teaching and learning, etc., I find there is a lot of inertia within the educators community itself to kind of adopt to the change. So at times I feel that there is kind of attitude that I know it all, or we become very complacent. You simply have to shed that inertia about technology, or not just about technology, but almost everything. The world is going to be fast changing, and you have to be what Dr. Chandrasekhar said: learn, unlearn, and relearn. And therefore, you have to kind of bring the human ego to a smallest possible size and always be more than teacher or instructor or the lecturer in the older version of classroom. We all have to finally realize, imbibe, and become the lifelong learner. By becoming that lifelong learner, I'm actually demonstrating my students those would also become a lifelong learner. So what happens is simply shed your inertia about any change, which I see a major roadblock. Second, become digitally compliant. So far we were always thinking about the subject wise, whether we have specialization or not, the deep knowledge we possess or not. The second comes or the regulatory compliance. You know, whether you're BEd, DLEd or whatever compliant you are or not. The next new addition going to be digital compliant. So people would always prefer. Let me give you an example. So in my team, once we were talking about running some social media campaign, and I asked one of my team members that why don't you come on this Twitter space, microblogging space, and you tweet about all of these new findings that you have on your research. And the person says that, oh, I have never done it. I say it's very easy thing to do it. You try it out. And he says, well, I request management to organize a training on Twitter so that there is a training and we attend. And thereafter I will go on this platform. Now the new employers are going to be take it all of these things as a default. So they are not going to come and say, okay, I'm going to tell you how to, run your video, or how do you do the typing space, how are you going to design, whether you are averse with Android version or not. So people are going to take it as a by default position, that you by default have to know all of these things. I'm not going to create a specialized training for this. Then comes the soft skill. You have to be always ready, innovate, critically think. This is how I delivered this class today. Is this the best way? What was my response? Response from the students that I received. When I have to do it tomorrow, would I like to do it differently? What will be that method? And the other, I will say, the ability to read data, because now data is going to be very important in digital space. All the time, when you integrate digital, the tools, it's going to give back data in terms of how well your class was received. For an example, if I'm giving math practices, I may have data as to where all at what level the students are finding it difficult to move ahead, and therefore I can go back. So it is, for me, would be easier to identify which one of my student is at what level of learning, and therefore what is the way to address his problem. And therefore the role is going to be come of a personalized teaching also, while in the digital and online and the skill context we are talking about, that is where we talk about standardization of education. So how do we make it a very standard delivery method? And therefore, along with standard method of delivery, as we identify the personal challenge of each of the learner, and we are able to address that, that is going to help. So that is the short way. Now, because we've talked about something about skill, and I know that the time is limited, if there is some time available, and if you guys know, I can share some of my perspective on how do I see future and new trends in the teacher job space.
Definitely, sir. We are surely coming to your point, but we have to move towards the question and answer also. We have got some question and answer from the participants, and my first question goes to Dr. Chandrasekhar. How can teachers stay motivated during this period?
Okay, so as the saying goes, right, learning never stops. It's the learner who stops. So as a teacher, we need to understand that whether it is a lockdown or no lockdown, nothing around us can change us. We need to understand that, and we need to make peace with that fact. And once we make peace with that fact, stick to a routine. Your job, if you have identified that you are a teacher, stick to that. Try to connect with your children. I'm sure no school will say no to this, because even the school will welcome this with open hands. So try to, one, stick to a routine and start reaching out to people. If you are finding it difficult, because I'm seeing the chat window and I see some of the schools are saying, sir, we are a low cost private school. We are a school with no resources. How do we motivate our employees or teachers? My answer to this is, first, stay connected. Stay connected with all of them. Tell them that this will pass. This is not a permanent situation. In fact, as I speak to you, the lockdown number 4 is getting more and more lenient on people. A lot of things are getting relaxed, so we can connect with them. WhatsApp is there, and I'm sure WhatsApp can be used more powerfully. You don't need new technology. I know of a case in one of my own school in Jain Toddlers in Hyderabad, where the whole month of April, we connected with kindergarten children below 6 years on WhatsApp. We gave them instructions, we gave them small videos, we also gave them activities so that parents can help the children and engage them. So there are a lot of things. So go with the will and you will find a way. That's my answer.
Thank you so much, sir. And as the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. So, and my next question is to Divya, ma'am. Uh, Along with teachers, how can you, as a school leader, motivate the parents to show interest in the online learning process that's happening during this time? So, what's your take, ma'am?
Kaushal, I think parents for most of the students are already motivated. In fact, they are the ones who are wanting the schools to go a leap further, not just be concentrated on academic work for kids, but also bring about co-curricular activities in the curriculum, even during this time, even with the online classes. And I myself being in that place. In our own school, we are running online classes for all our co-curricular activities. May it be dance, may it be instrumental music, vocal music, art and craft, clay modeling. Everything is going on. Even cookery classes are going on for online on during these online classes. Along with that, we have weekly competitions, something to keep the spirits high. So we recently celebrated Mother's Day, where we had parental involvement. We gave them tasks like interviewing their mothers on what they like, because generally at this time, if we know, all the households mothers are also in a lot of they need to do a lot more than they are regularly doing. So we're celebrating different activities like Earth Day. We put across different intra-class competitions like Kavita Vachan, extempore, and Hindi, English, both mediums. So we're trying our level best with a different sort of activities that we're putting forward to keep our parents completely involved with the students during this time. So, like I said, for us to have the kids involved and the parents involved, it is important that we keep creating different things, different activities for them, so that no routine becomes a mundane routine for them. They, every time they look towards a class, they expect something new, they expect something novel coming their way, and because of which, that spirit will always remain high. So that's my take on it.
That's very wonderful to hear that a lot of activities that are being taken up by your school to engage parents. Uh, Over to Amit, sir. So since you are in the policy part, sir, what advice would you give to schools, to the low cost schools where they are unable to conduct online classes? And what are the skills that you were talking about for the teachers? So if you could join up the two things and help our participants with this.
Okay. So I think on the skill part, we have already emphasized the kind of skill, and I also emphasize on that it not, while it might sound as to something new is coming, it may not be as difficult. Very easily we can adopt to it. I think while I'm looking at the chat box in terms of low cost private school and in terms of policy, because I have worked in the policy, education policy space, and then I created one of the biggest alliance of low cost private schools in India called NISA, National Independent Schools Alliance. I can briefly touch on the concern coming. And the concern is coming on the financial viability, how to deal with this. That is a very difficult one. Okay, let me first briefly tell you how do I see this space is going to look like in as short time possible. I can explain. So first thing I see is that all these low-cost private schools, Dr. Chandrasekhar has already highlighted that there are roughly 15 lakh schools in country, out of which the biggest size goes to government. Roughly 9 lakh schools are government schools, and roughly 6 lakhs are those private schools in country. And I believe roughly 80% of these private schools, what we call low-cost private schools. And the definition is that low-cost private schools are those schools which charge lesser fee than the government per child expenditure. So for an example, in Delhi, the Delhi per child per year expenditure happens to be roughly around 60,000 rupees. So if there is a private school whose annual fee is below 60,000 rupees, we categorize them as a low-cost private schools. Now, within these low-cost private school also, there is huge competition. And what all is going to happen due to COVID-19, which is going to make this entire education space very interesting, is number one, we have seen these migrant laborers who are migrating from urban cities back to their villages. Now, these are the kids whose, these were the families whose kids were enrolled either in the government school or the local private schools. So all of these worker class, and at the moment we are seeing only those laborers, the manual laborers who can walk or go on train. The moment the lockdown is lifted, the second tier of the group, which will be more like a mason, carpenter or plumber, and all of those semi-skilled labor population, which is so far stuck, would also possibly migrate. And if that happens, which means we are going to face dropout, we might face a huge dropout in the current enrollment. And those dropout may be from government schools or local private schools. Then the other part of the financial gap is coming from these directions on the whether they can increase fee or not, or whether they can charge fee or not. And what I'm constantly getting information is that the fee collection is not happening in school. And therefore, that has led to a financial unviability. Now, what will happen because of this? Because of this, there is a possibility that some of the schools who cannot survive this financial gap, will possibly have to shut down, or just simply they don't want to take the trouble of getting too much into confrontation with the government and authorities, and also simply cutting down, or with the new norms of compliance in terms of safety and hygiene and running classes in different batches and all, might make it more input heavy meaning more costly. So two things as an impact. Number one, few schools might have to close down, which become very unviable. Those who continue, they might have to increase fee. Their cost might have to increase, and therefore, what does that mean for teachers? So for teachers, it means that in the low-cost private schools, there could be job loss or the reduction in salary, because they are not willing to pay as much as it was possible earlier. And the second thing is the financial crunch for the government too. So government also will not have access to as much of revenue as it had earlier. And therefore, all of that investment which government was doing to improve quality of education within the government, so investment in improving the infrastructure, teacher training, new recruitment, all of might halt for the time being. Demand for online education is increasing and will possibly continue to increase. But we need to keep in mind that is only so far in private schools. The government schools have not adopted to the online method of education delivery, and in future, not sure, there would be one category of students who are going to private school who will say, hey, we have completed our curriculum, we are good to go ahead for exams. And there will be government school students who would say, hey, there was no class, and therefore we have not completed curriculum, and therefore we are not ready to take exam, while we don't know when the classes will open. So this may also create a difficult situation for the regulatory authority. This space is going to be highly competitive, the education space too, because the moment we are thinking about online education, then parents would start thinking, hey, this is not what I bought for. So why I enrolled my kid to this particular school? Because the holistic education, the social inclusion, the emotional, the working with with kids, with teachers in real life, not in online. And if this is going to be the norm of the day, why not to go to the Byju's of the world or Khan Academy of the world or Tata classes of the world that we can buy? So there is going to be an interesting discussion in that scene also. So all of this is going to be a very interesting space to observe and thereafter think about how how new things are going to come up. And as Dr. Chandrasekhar also talked about the entrepreneurship skills, I see while this space is going to see interesting shifts and it's going to be very dynamic, it's going to create a lot of new opportunities for all those teachers who are also entrepreneurial, can think out of the box, may also create their own classes and all. So it is bringing a lot of viability. My answer, very short answer as to a very specific question asked in the chat box about the financial viability. Like we see the stimulus package coming for almost all other sectors where there was loss of business. I think schools also together can create their own association or which is an association, a platform already available, can join together, reach out to the government and explain their pain points and say why it is also important that government includes a stimulus package for education sector also, as they are doing for many others. Thank you. I already took a lot of time.
No, sir. We had the honor to listen to all three of the panelists, and I would conclude with a very small statement that Dr. Chandrasekhar said, where there is a will, there is a way. So dear participants, dear teacher, we have listened to these three panelists who talked about the various skills that we'll be requiring post-COVID era and how we can upgrade to those skills. So with this, I conclude the session and thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Chandra, and Divya Kapoor for sharing your expertise and contributing towards this curtain raiser event of our No Lockdown for Learning Season 2. We were honored by your presence, and I hope that all the teachers who were here as participants have gained a lot of insight, and once the lockdown opens, they will be more charged up with all the necessary skills that you all have talked up. So thank you all the panelists and thank you all the participants. So over to you, Varun.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So great. So I have a couple of announcements from my side, and I just start with a small thank you. So we have shared the feedback form in the chat box. You can directly fill the form so that you get all the latest information. And with regards to the announcements, I would again start off with thanking Chandrasekhar sir. I've known him for a year now. Every single interaction that I've had with him leads me to a couple of insights, and that is precisely the reason why I wanted to his knowledge to be shared here. And I am so glad that we are fortunate that he agreed for the session. And thank you so much, Dr. Amit Chandra and Divya Kapoor, ma'am, for sharing your valuable knowledge with our teacher community. I'm sure that majority of the teachers would now go back and they'll start off with their PLN, building their PLNs and stuff. So as the speakers mentioned, the entire motive behind us as well as a company to start off Teacher was to create a pan-India personal learning network. That is what a PLN stands for. So we have a form where teachers keep sharing the best practices and valuable information. You can go ahead and check out the feed on teacher.in and start sharing your resources. This one way would be to make the maximum leverage of the lockdown. In addition to that, with regards to jobs, we have onboarded close to 100 solid institutions and in the last 1 to 2 weeks. So all these institutions are actually hiring for work from home part-time job opportunities. You can actually go and check them out on teacher.in/jobs. So in case if any of the teachers here are looking out for part-time jobs and gigs during this lockdown session and for looking for extra income, this would be the best way. So like Kaushal mentioned, this is a curtain raiser for the next entire week of learning. So tomorrow's session would be about creative ways to teach online languages. So we have Miss Ila Verma, so who would be coming here, and she's a Delhi government-based Delhi mentors teacher. So she's taken her time and she'll be here tomorrow. So I request you again to fill the feedback form, and thank you so much, Chandrasekhar sir. Thank you, Dr. Amit, and thank you, Divya Kapoor ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights and knowledge with our teacher community. We are really fortunate to have your presence here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Varun and teacher team. Thank you. And thanks to Ms. Divya and Mr. Amit for sharing their insights. I really enjoyed listening and learning from them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar. Thank you, Dr. Amit Chandra. And thank you to the entire teacher team, Mr. Kaushal and Mr. Varun, for inviting us here so that we can actually give back to the community we've taken for so long. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.